The Caltharian Empire had ruled over 17 star systems for more than 3 centuries. Their power came from 2 things: advanced weapons and absolute fear. Every species in their territory knew the rules. Break them and the punishment was swift and brutal. No exceptions. No mercy. The human colony ship Perseverance had been traveling for 6 months when it happened. A navigation error. A simple mistake in the star charts. The ship drifted across an invisible boundary into Caltharian sacred space. It was an accident, but to the Caltharians accidents meant nothing. Their laws were older than most civilizations, carved in stone and written in blood. Within hours, Caltharian warships surrounded the human vessel. Captain Hayes tried to explain. He showed them the faulty navigation data. He apologized 100 different ways. But the aliens were not interested in excuses. The tribunal had been called and the tribunal demanded payment. 1 human life for the violation. That was their law. The tribunal chamber was massive, built to intimidate. Tall pillars stretched toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Hundreds of Caltharian officials sat in curved rows, their dark armor gleaming under cold blue lights. At the center stood Ambassador Velcros, the highest-ranking warrior in the sector. He was nearly 9 feet tall, with thick scaled skin and eyes that looked like polished black stone. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. The entire human crew had been brought before them. 73 people stood in a tight group, surrounded by armed guards. Men and women who had left Earth hoping to build a new life on a distant colony world. Now they stood trembling, waiting to learn which one of them would die. Velcros walked slowly along the line of humans, studying each face. He took his time. This was part of the ritual. The fear was part of the punishment. When he reached the end of the line, he stopped. His cold gaze dropped downward. 8-year-old Katie Miller stood there, holding her father's hand so tight her knuckles had turned white. She had light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and wore a faded blue jacket that was slightly too big for her. She looked up at the massive alien warrior towering above her, but she did not cry. Her father, Tom Miller, immediately stepped forward, trying to shield his daughter with his body. Velcros smiled. It was not a kind smile. He pointed one long clawed finger at the child and spoke in perfect English. "This one," he said simply. The reaction was instant. Katie's mother, Beth, screamed and lunged forward. 2 guards caught her before she could reach her daughter. Captain Hayes started shouting, offering himself instead, offering anything. Tom Miller was begging, pleading, saying his daughter was just a child, that this was insane, that she had done nothing wrong. But the Caltharians did not care. To them this made perfect sense. Taking the smallest, the weakest, sent the strongest message. It showed that humans were nothing. That human lives meant nothing. That their empire could take whatever it wanted, whenever it wanted. The execution method had been decided centuries ago. It was tradition. The condemned would be placed in the great arena and would face Shrika. The name alone made most species in the galaxy freeze in terror. Shrika was their legendary albino voidwolf, a creature bred specifically for killing. Pure white fur, 12 feet long from nose to tail, with crystalline teeth that could bite through armor plating. The beast had never failed to kill. Not once in 47 executions. These events were always broadcast across the Empire. Every conquered world, every subject species, watched as the Caltharians demonstrated their power. It kept everyone afraid. It kept everyone obedient. And now humanity would learn the same lesson. Guards moved forward and pulled Katie away from her parents. She started crying, then calling for her mom and dad. Beth was hysterical, screaming her daughter's name over and over. Tom fought against the guards holding him, but they were far stronger than any human. Captain Hayes kept shouting protests, kept demanding to speak to someone higher up, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Katie was being dragged toward the massive doors at the end of the chamber. Beyond those doors lay the tunnel to the arena. She looked back at her parents, tears streaming down her face, reaching out with one small hand. The last thing she saw before the doors closed was her mother collapsing in her father's arms, both of them sobbing. Outside the tribunal chamber, news was spreading fast. The arena was filling up. Thousands of alien spectators from dozens of different species were taking their seats. Some came to watch justice being served. Others came because they had no choice, ordered to attend by their Caltharian rulers. All of them knew what was about to happen. They had seen it before. Another execution. Another demonstration of power. Another life about to end in blood and terror. Just another day in the Caltharian Empire. The tunnel leading to the arena was dark and cold. Katie could hear the echo of thousands of voices on the other side of the massive gate. The guards had stopped dragging her once they reached the entrance. One of them unlocked her restraints and simply pointed forward. She understood. She had to walk out there alone. Her legs felt weak. Every step toward that gate felt impossible. But she kept walking because there was nowhere else to go. Behind her stood armed guards. Ahead was whatever waited in that arena. She thought about her parents, about her mom's face, about her dad trying to protect her. She wished she could hug them one more time. The gate began to rise with a grinding metallic sound that made her teeth hurt. Bright light flooded in, blinding her for a moment. The noise hit her like a physical wave. Thousands of alien creatures, all making sounds she had never heard before. Clicking, chirping, roaring, hissing. It was overwhelming. Katie stepped out onto the arena floor and the crowd went quiet. It happened all at once, like someone had flipped a switch. The silence was somehow worse than the noise. She could feel all those eyes watching her, judging her, waiting for her to die. The arena was enormous. The floor was made of dark gray stone, stained with old bloodstains that had never quite washed away. The walls stretched up at least 50 feet before reaching the first row of seats. Above that, tier after tier of spectators rose into the distance. She had never felt so small in her entire life. A voice boomed across the arena, amplified by speakers. Ambassador Velcros was speaking in his own language first, then switching to English so the humans watching the broadcast would understand. He talked about laws and violations and justice. He talked about how humanity needed to learn respect. Katie barely heard the words. She was looking around, trying to understand where the danger would come from. Then she saw it. On the far side of the arena, built into the wall, was another gate. This one was different. Heavy. Reinforced with thick metal bars. And from behind it came a sound that made her blood run cold. A low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. Velcros finished his speech. The crowd waited. Katie stood in the center of the arena, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The walls were too high to climb. The exits were guarded. She was trapped. The gate across from her began to open. It moved slowly, deliberately, building the tension. The growling grew louder. Katie could see movement in the darkness beyond the gate. Something big. Something that moved with predatory grace. Then Shrika stepped into the light and Katie forgot how to breathe. The creature was massive. Easily the size of a small car, built like a wolf but wrong in ways that made it even more terrifying. Its fur was pure white, almost glowing under the arena lights. But it was the other features that made Katie's stomach drop. Crystalline fangs that looked like they were carved from diamond, each one as long as her hand. Eyes that glowed deep red like burning coals. Claws that scraped against the stone floor with each step, leaving scratch marks in their wake. This was not an animal. This was a weapon. A living, breathing killing machine that had been designed for one purpose only. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation. They had seen this 47 times before. They knew how it went. The creature would charge. The victim would try to run, would scream, would beg. And then it would be over in seconds. Quick, brutal, final. Shrika's red eyes locked onto Katie. The beast's head lowered, ears flat against its skull. It began to circle slowly, moving to the right, keeping its gaze fixed on the small human girl in the center of the arena. The growl never stopped, a constant low rumble that promised violence. Every instinct in Katie's body screamed at her to run, to scream, to do something. But she had seen nature documentaries back on Earth. She had watched shows about wolves and lions and bears. And she remembered something her grandfather had told her once, back when they went camping in the mountains. If you see a predator, don't run. Running triggers the chase instinct. You run, you die. So Katie did something that shocked every single creature watching. Something that had never happened in the history of the arena. She slowly, carefully sat down, cross-legged on the cold stone floor. Then she took a deep breath, tried to stop her hands from shaking, and extended one small hand forward toward the approaching monster. The arena fell into absolute silence. Even the growling stopped. Shrika paused mid-step, head tilting slightly to one side. Confused. In all its years of executions, none of its prey had ever done this before. In his luxury viewing booth, Ambassador Velcros leaned forward, eyes narrowed. This was not how it was supposed to go. This was not how it ever went. He waited for the inevitable charge, for the beast to finish what it was bred to do. But Shrika did not charge. Instead, the massive white creature took one cautious step forward. Then another. Moving closer to the small human child who sat perfectly still, hand extended, waiting. Shrika moved closer step by step. Katie could feel her heart hammering in her chest, but she kept her hand out. She kept her breathing as steady as she could manage. The beast was now only a few feet away. Close enough that she could see every detail. The scars on its white fur. The way its muscles moved under its skin. The intelligence in those glowing red eyes. Then it lunged. Katie squeezed her eyes shut, expecting pain. Expecting everything to end. But the pain never came. Instead, she felt warm breath on her face. Hot air washing over her extended hand. She opened her eyes slowly and found herself staring directly into Shrika's face, so close she could see her own reflection in those red eyes. The creature sniffed her hand carefully. Its massive head moved slowly, taking in her scent. Katie could hear it breathing, could see its nostrils flaring. The predatory hunger she had seen moments before was gone. Now there was only confusion. The beast tilted its head, examining this strange small creature that was not running, not screaming, not doing anything it had learned to expect from prey. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Thousands of voices talking at once, creating a wave of sound that rolled across the arena. This had never happened before. Not once in 47 executions. The prey always ran. The beast always killed. That was how it worked. That was how it had always worked. Katie remained frozen in place, barely daring to breathe. She watched as Shrika's ears slowly shifted position. They had been flat against its head, a sign of aggression. Now they were moving forward, standing up. The beast's entire posture was changing. Its shoulders relaxed. Its tail, which had been rigid and straight, began to lower. "Hey there," Katie whispered, so quietly that only the creature could hear. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The words were automatic, the same thing she said to nervous dogs back home. She had no idea if this thing could even understand tone, let alone language. But she had to try something. She had to do something other than just sit there waiting to die. Shrika's ears twitched at the sound of her voice. The creature took another step closer, so close now that Katie could have reached out and touched its face. She didn't. Not yet. She kept her hand where it was, extended but not threatening, letting the beast make all the decisions. High above the arena, in a reinforced control room, 3 Caltharian handlers were staring at their monitors in complete panic. They had raised Shrika from birth. They had trained it to kill on command. They had never, not once, seen it hesitate like this. "Activate the pain stimulants," the head handler ordered, slamming his clawed hand on the control panel. "Force the kill." One of the technicians pressed a series of buttons. Embedded in Shrika's nervous system were microscopic devices, installed when it was young. They could deliver waves of pain, forcing the creature to act aggressively when it might otherwise hesitate. The system had never been needed before, but it existed for exactly this kind of situation. Down in the arena, Shrika suddenly yelped in pain. Its entire body tensed. The beast snarled, shaking its head violently, trying to escape the invisible torture coursing through its nervous system. Katie jerked back instinctively, fear flooding through her again. But Shrika did not attack. Even through the pain, even with every nerve in its body screaming, the creature did not turn on the small human sitting in front of it. Instead, it whimpered. It paced in a tight circle, clearly suffering, clearly confused about why this was happening. "Stop it," Katie shouted, not even knowing who she was shouting at. "You're hurting it. Stop." In the control room, the handlers looked at each other in disbelief. The pain stimulants were at maximum. No creature could resist them. The beast should be in a killing frenzy by now. But Shrika was actively fighting the urge, refusing to harm the child even as pain overwhelmed its senses. "Increase the intensity," the head handler ordered, desperation in his voice. "Sir, we're already at maximum. If we go higher, we could kill it." "Do it." But before the technician could follow the order, something impossible happened. Shrika, the deadliest predator in the Caltharian Empire, the creature that had killed seasoned warriors without hesitation, walked over to Katie and lay down beside her. The massive beast stretched out on the arena floor and rested its huge head near her lap. The pain was still there. Katie could see the creature trembling, could hear small whimpers escaping its throat. But it had made a choice. It would endure the pain rather than hurt her. Katie acted on pure instinct. She reached out and gently placed her hand on Shrika's head, right between its ears. She stroked softly, the way she used to pet her neighbor's dog back home. "It's okay," she whispered again. "I've got you. You're okay." In the luxury viewing booth, Ambassador Velcros shot to his feet so fast his chair fell backward. "What is happening?" he roared at his advisors. "Why is it not killing her?" His advisors had no answers. They were all staring at the arena floor with expressions of complete shock. One of them was frantically typing on a data pad, pulling up information, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. The chief biologist, a female Caltharian named Dr. Vex, was staring at her atmospheric sensors with her mouth hanging open. "This is impossible," she muttered. "The readings make no sense." "Explain," Velcros demanded. "The human child, she has no fear markers." "None. Her biochemistry shows she is calm. More than calm. She is showing empathy responses. And there is something else, something our sensors are not calibrated to properly identify, but it appears to be some kind of bonding pheromone." Minutes passed. The pain stimulants were shut off because they clearly were not working. Katie continued to stroke Shrika's head, speaking softly to the creature. And slowly, impossibly, the beast relaxed completely. Its breathing steadied. Its eyes closed halfway. To anyone watching, it looked almost peaceful. Then Velcros made a decision. "Send guards. Separate them. Now." Four heavily armed Caltharian warriors entered the arena. They approached cautiously, weapons ready. When they got within 10 feet, Shrika's eyes snapped open. The peaceful creature vanished instantly, replaced by pure protective fury. The beast surged to its feet and placed itself between Katie and the approaching guards, snarling with such intensity that all four warriors stumbled backward. One guard tried to circle around. Shrika moved like lightning, jaws snapping closed inches from the warrior's throat. The guard fell backward, barely escaping. Another tried to use a shock weapon. Shrika batted it away with one massive paw, leaving deep claw marks in the guard's armor. The message was clear. The Empire's ultimate weapon had chosen. It would protect the human child, even from its own masters. Within the hour, the tribunal chamber was packed again. But this time it was not for a ceremonial execution. This was an emergency session. Every high-ranking Caltharian official in the sector had been summoned. The massive chamber buzzed with urgent conversations, arguments, and confusion. Something had gone terribly wrong and nobody knew what to do about it. Ambassador Velcros stood at the center, his usual confidence shaken. On the holographic displays floating above the chamber, footage from the arena played on loop. Katie sitting calmly. Shrika refusing to attack. The beast lying down beside her. The guards being driven back. Every official watched in stunned silence. But the real problem was not what had happened in the arena. The real problem was that the footage had already escaped their control. It was spreading. Fast. Across their empire, across neutral zones, reaching species they had conquered decades ago. By now, millions of beings across dozens of star systems had seen it. A human child had done the impossible. She had befriended their ultimate weapon. The implications were staggering. For 300 years, the Caltharian Empire had maintained control through fear. Through demonstrations of power. Through executions like this one. But what happened when the execution failed? What happened when their weapon of terror chose to protect the intended victim instead? "Bring the human captain," Velcros ordered, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Now. Captain Hayes was dragged into the chamber still in restraints. His eyes were red from crying, his voice hoarse from screaming. But when he saw the footage playing above him, when he saw his crewmate's daughter still alive, hope flickered across his face. "Explain this," Velcros demanded, gesturing at the hologram. "What is your species? What kind of creatures are you?" Hayes looked up at the massive alien warrior. For the first time since this nightmare began, he felt like he had leverage. His people were not helpless. They had something these aliens did not understand. Something that might save them all. "You want to know why Shrika did not kill her?" Hayes asked. "You want to know why your perfect weapon failed? Speak." "Because humans evolved alongside wolves for 30,000 years, Hayes said, his voice growing stronger. "We did not hunt them to extinction. We did not conquer them with technology. We partnered with them. We made them family. That little girl down there, she's not doing anything special. She is doing what humans have done since before we built cities, before we wrote languages, before we even understood fire. She is making a friend." The tribunal erupted in arguments. Some officials dismissed the claim as impossible. Others demanded evidence. But Dr. Vex, the chief biologist, was already pulling up data on her screens, cross-referencing it with Earth's history files that they had obtained when first encountering humanity. "He is telling the truth," Dr. Vex announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. "According to Earth records, humans domesticated an apex predator species called Canis lupus approximately 15,000 years ago, though their partnership began much earlier. They transformed these predators into companions. They called them dogs." "That is irrelevant," one advisor argued. Shrika is not from Earth. It cannot possibly respond to human bonding behaviors. That is what I thought too, Dr. Vex said quietly. But I have been analyzing the atmospheric data from the arena. The child is emitting chemical signals. Pheromones. They are affecting Shrika's neural responses. These chemicals appear to work across species barriers. She pulled up graphs and molecular structures on the holographic displays. Humans evolved as what they call persistence hunters and pack coordinators. They did not develop the strongest muscles or the sharpest claws. Instead, they developed something far more sophisticated. The ability to read social cues. To communicate intent. To form bonds with other species. The child is not controlling Shrika. She is communicating with it in ways our handlers never learned. Velcro stared at the data in disbelief. You are saying this child, this prey species, is better at handling our weapon than our trained warriors? Yes, Dr. Vex confirmed. Watch the footage again. Look at her body positioning. She makes herself non-threatening but not submissive. She extends her hand for identification but does not grab. She maintains eye contact but does not stare aggressively. Every movement she makes is calculated to communicate peaceful intent. And Shrika understands it all perfectly. Another official pulled up new footage, this time from the current arena feed. What they saw made several tribunal members gasp audibly. Down in the arena, Katie was playing with Shrika. The massive predator that had killed 47 beings was now rolling onto its back. Katie was scratching its belly, and the creature's back leg was kicking in pleasure, just like a happy dog. She laughed, the sound echoing across the arena, and Shrika responded with a playful yip that sounded nothing like the terrifying growl from before. This cannot be happening, Velcros muttered, but he could not look away from the screen. Katie had found a loose stone on the arena floor. She tossed it across the space and Shrika bounded after it like an excited puppy, despite weighing over half a ton. The beast brought the stone back and dropped it at her feet, tail wagging, waiting for another throw. The galaxy's most feared predator was playing fetch with an 8-year-old human child who barely reached its shoulder. Captain Hayes watched the footage with tears running down his face, but this time they were tears of relief. You thought we were weak because we do not have claws or armor or venomous fangs, he said to the silent tribunal. You thought wrong. We survived on Earth by making friends with creatures that had all those things. We survived by turning predators into protectors. We survived by being the one species that could look at a wolf and see a partner instead of an enemy. Dr. Vex was typing frantically on her data pad, pulling up more information. Ambassador, I need to show you something else. According to Earth's history, humans did not just partner with wolves. They domesticated horses, cattle, cats, birds, even insects. They formed working relationships with dozens of species. Some of their most successful societies were built on these multi-species partnerships. What are you saying? Velcros asked, though he already knew the answer. He could see it on every official's face. Fear. Real fear. I am saying we have made a catastrophic error in judgment, Dr. Vex replied. We assessed humans as prey because they seemed physically weak. We assumed they would be easy to control. But we were not analyzing the right kind of strength. Humans are not conquerors like us. They are something potentially far more dangerous. The Caltharian Empire found itself in a position it had never experienced before. They were trapped. Completely and utterly trapped by their own laws and traditions. For 3 centuries they had ruled through absolute power and fear. Now that power had crumbled in front of billions of witnesses, and they had no idea how to fix it. The problem was simple but unsolvable. They could not kill Katie. Every time guards approached the arena, Shrika became a wall of teeth and fury. The creature would die protecting her, and if they killed their own legendary Void Wolf to execute one human child, they would look even weaker. They could not suppress the footage because it had already spread too far. By now, every corner of the galaxy had seen it. And worst of all, they could not answer the one question that every species under their rule was asking. If humans can turn your ultimate weapon into a pet, what does that say about your power? The tribunal argued for hours. Some wanted to find a way to salvage the situation, to spin it somehow. Others wanted to punish the humans anyway, laws be damned. But Ambassador Velcros, for all his pride, was not stupid. He understood what was happening. The Empire was losing control of the narrative, and every moment they delayed made it worse. Bring the child's father, he finally ordered. Let them have their reunion. Tom Miller was still being held with the other crew members. When the guards came for him, he thought it was his turn to die. He fought them, screaming that they had already taken his daughter, that they could not take anything else from him. But then they told him the truth. Katie was alive. She was in the arena. And they were taking him to her. The walk to the arena felt like a dream. Tom could not process what the guards were telling him. His daughter had befriended Shrika. The execution had failed. None of it made sense. But when he stepped out onto that arena floor and saw Katie sitting there, alive and smiling, with a massive white creature lying peacefully beside her, he stopped caring about making sense of anything. "Daddy!" Katie shouted and ran toward him. Tom dropped to his knees and caught her in his arms, holding her so tight he was afraid he might hurt her. He was crying, she was crying, and he did not care that thousands of aliens were watching or that this was being broadcast across the galaxy. His daughter was alive. Nothing else mattered. Shrika watched the reunion carefully. The beast stood up and moved closer, positioning itself near both humans. Not threatening. Protecting. When Tom instinctively moved to shield Katie from the creature, she put her small hand on his arm. "It's okay, Daddy," she said. "Shrika is my friend now." Tom stared at the massive predator that his daughter was casually calling a friend. This was insane. This was impossible. But he was looking right at it, so it had to be real. Captain Hayes was brought to the arena entrance to negotiate. He stood before Ambassador Velcros and made a proposal that would have been unthinkable just hours ago. "Let us leave. All of us. The crew, the child, and Shrika. The Void Wolf is property of the Empire," Velcros started to say, but Hayes cut him off. "With respect, Ambassador, that creature has made its own choice. It will not leave the child. And if you try to separate them by force, you will have to kill it. Is that what you want broadcast across the galaxy? That humanity broke your ultimate weapon so badly you had to destroy it?" Velcros stared at the human captain with cold hatred. But he nodded. "Take it. Take the beast. Take your people. Leave our space and never return." The humiliation was complete. The Caltharian Empire's symbol of dominance was leaving with an 8-year-old human girl because it wanted to. Not because humanity had superior weapons. Not because of threats or violence. Because a child had made friends with it. The footage of the reunion of Tom Miller holding his daughter while Shrika stood guard was broadcast to over 1,000 worlds. Every species that had been conquered by the Caltharians watched it. Every civilization that had lived in fear of their power saw it. And they all understood what it meant. Humans were different. Within weeks, everything changed. The incident became known simply as the Bonding, and it reshaped galactic politics overnight. Human ships that had been turned away from ports suddenly found themselves welcomed. Species that had never responded to human diplomatic requests were now initiating contact. Everyone wanted to understand this ability. Everyone wanted to know if humans could help them with their own dangerous creatures, their own problems, their own conflicts. Military strategists across the galaxy recalculated humanity's threat assessment. A species that could turn enemies into allies without firing a shot was not weak. They were potentially the most dangerous kind of civilization imaginable. Because weapons could be defended against. Armies could be fought. But how did you defend against a species that made friends with your weapons? Ambassador Velcros was stripped of his rank and position. His career was over. But before he left office, he wrote one final report that would be studied by xenopoliticians for generations. The key passage was simple but devastating. "We made a fundamental error. We saw humans as gentle and assumed they were weak. We saw them as prey and missed what they really were. They do not conquer predators through force. They befriend them. They turn them into family. A species that can look at a wolf and see a companion can eventually win over anyone, even those who start as enemies. We did not lose to human weapons. We lost to something far more powerful. We lost to their friendship." The Perseverance left Caltharian space 3 days later. Katie Miller stood at the observation window, Shrika lying on the specially reinforced floor beside her, watching the stars. She was going home. And she was bringing her new friend with her. When they arrived at Earth, Katie became famous instantly. The girl who befriended the galaxy's deadliest predator. Media from every human colony wanted interviews. Scientists wanted to study her. But Katie just wanted to go home and introduce Shrika to her grandparents. Across the galaxy, humanity's reputation shifted. They were no longer seen as insignificant newcomers. They were no longer dismissed as weak. They had become something else entirely. The species that befriends monsters. The civilization that turns weapons into companions. The people who had survived Earth not by being the strongest, but by being the best at making friends. And the galaxy would never underestimate them again.